Hello and welcome to Startup Street. I'm Shruti Mishra. We continue to bring you all the action from Web Summit Qatar 2025. As small businesses continue to play a pivotal role in driving economic growth across emerging markets, fintech has emerged as a powerful force in transforming the way these businesses operate, scale and thrive. I caught up with three leaders who are at the forefront of this transformation. I caught up with Faisal Toukan, the co-founder and CEO of Ziina. I also caught up with Shawky, the co-founder and CEO of Paymob, and Ahmad Coucha, the CEO of Flapkap. Take a look as we discuss small businesses' big fintech impact. Gentlemen, welcome to the panel. And first of all, let me start with a broad question. In your opinion, what is that one most significant way that fintech has impacted businesses in emerging markets? Faisal.
Definitely. So I think I appreciate the easy first question, but when it comes to fintech in emerging markets, what's happened recently is that it's basically democratized finance. And what I mean by that is that with the advent, I know there's a lot of buzzwords here, but with the advent of automation and AI and self-service, you're really able to provide a personalized experience for every single SME or small and medium business as if they were an enterprise customer, right?
Yeah.
And if you look flashback 4 years ago or so, that was not the case.
All right, Islam. So he said democratization and customization.
No, I mean, I'm echoing my colleague is that access to the tools to help SMEs accept digital transactions that are essential for them to grow, I think is the really big part that happened. I think we're at an inflection point between a phase of enablement where SMBs and actually even consumer didn't have the tools to pay digitally. And now we're moving into this activation phase where they started having these tools. Now it's the time to actually make them transact. And this is where all the tools and the vertical kind of SaaS and use cases that are being built, obviously in lending or in consumer, that will be extremely important.
Sure, Ahmad, you agree with both of them?
Yeah. So for us, like the most exciting impact, of course, for fintech is widening the access to finance for SMEs.
Yeah.
SMEs represent the majority of the businesses created, the number of people employed, and big part of the GDP of our region. However, very small part of the finance goes to them. And fintech has been able to leverage all the growing alternative data sources to be able to widen the access to financing.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of the most impactful areas for SMEs from fintech, essentially.
All right. Let me go back to Faisal. Faisal, you know, Ziina is revolutionizing payments in the UAE. How do you approach tailoring fintech solutions to these regions, catering to the specific needs of businesses?
Okay, so a really interesting number about the UAE is 2 years ago, there were 300,000 SMEs in the UAE. Today, there's around 610,000, and by 2030, there's set to be around 1 to 1.1 million. So there's a massive growing segment of these small businesses that need very, very personalized needs to grow their business, right? What you have to do when you're working with SMEs, especially at that scale, is you actually have to build solutions that are very, very self-service. What I mean by that is that everything from the way you educate the customer about the product from the moment they see it on a billboard, down to the moment they see it on the app store, down to the moment they sign up and they get these automated emails, need to be very, very customized towards their journey and their needs.
Yeah.
Now, again, it goes back to the theme we talked about before, but this is all done through automation, right? So the way to personalize things is basically to do something called a product-led strategy and lead with the product journey first, and then advertising, marketing, and sales second. Right?
Okay.
So that's how you do so.
All right, Islam, you know, Paymob, it has empowered many small businesses with digital payment solutions. What are the most common challenges that you see businesses face when they adopt fintech, and how does Paymob empower them?
So definitely the start of it is demand side. So when we started in Egypt, we go to an SME and tell them, guys, do you need a post? They'd say no, we don't have. We've been operating for the past 20, 30 years, and we're doing okay. And then the next question that we would ask is, how many clients that came into this store and said they want to buy something and actually wanted to pay with a card, and all of a sudden you said no, and you lost this transaction. So the guy would say, I had this 2 times last month or 2 times last week. So I'll tell them, like, when you start adopting digital ways to accept transactions, you're tapping into new sources of fund. It's not only cash, tapping into credit, wallets, buy now, pay later. So our rationale is that we want to help SMBs grow, and we do this by helping them get access to as many funding sources as we can. So in Egypt, we accommodate more than 40 modes of payment. So from wallets to installment plans to the normal card scheme and the local scheme. So our rationale is, the more payment methods, the more the probability of the product to be sold, and hopefully the more revenue or profit for the organization.
All right. Ahmad, you know, Flapkap focuses on providing financial solutions for SMEs. What is that one underappreciated fintech tool that small businesses must use to scale effectively?
So again, like the superpower now of SMEs is that most of the transactional data are within third-party providers. So now if I have a little shop, a little retail shop, I'm running a POS machine that maybe 80% of all the transactions are being captured on. Maybe I'm selling a restaurant, selling on an aggregator, like a delivery platform, and I have a big part of the volume also of my sales going through it. This is ultimately the biggest gem that the SME is creating for people like us, lenders, because once you have your house in order, as Islam was mentioning, once you have these data, when we get access to it, we are able to understand your business, underwrite it, and take comfort where others, like other typical lenders, like the banks and the other legacy financing institutions, would never be comfortable. So essentially, the biggest advice is try to digitize. Go with the wave, don't try to resist it. You will become obsolete. You will have access to less financing solutions and other value-added services, and you will be falling behind. It's not even like you're building an advantage, but you will be falling behind in a way.
So clearly there are challenges in adoption, and Faisal, you know, how do you overcome the trust barrier, you know, where small businesses are hesitant to adopt to these new fintech tools, and especially in regions where cash is king?
Okay, it's interesting that you say that. The way to overcome trust is through just 2 means. Number one is licensing is taken extremely seriously in this region, and for a good reason. I mean, you're dealing with people's money at the end of the day, right? So it's a very, very high barrier to entry. And I think we were just chatting backstage, and our license at some point took 2 years each to get right from the central bank. But again, it's because they take it very seriously. The good news is once you have that badge, we've seen basically, and once we got that license, we saw an instant conversion in people using the platform, right? So that's number one. Work with the regulators to verify yourself and get yourself basically being, right, give yourself that kind of, that stamp. Second is word of mouth, to be honest. The more people that use the platform, the more there's a positive network effect of people using it. And our biggest acquisition channel by far, which accounts for 65% of all inbound acquisition on Ziina, is organic. So 65% of people sign up to Ziina just because they've seen it out in the wild, right? So I think those are the 2 leading kind of reasons.
So you've clearly built a lot of trust there. Islam, you know, picking up from what Faisal just said, I kind of want to know that how does education is key. You have to educate these small businesses on how these fintech tools are going to empower them. So how does Paymob do that to ensure that these businesses are maximizing their fintech tools?
So from us, I think human touch is very important in order to be able to do so. That's why we have almost 1,000 people in Egypt, for instance, that every day are onboarding merchants. First of all, people need this trust, and this trust we don't see, especially if they're 100% cash, we don't see that it will come only from kind of digital. People need to see who are we dealing with. Obviously, to Faisal's point, the association with the financial being licensed is something that obviously gives trust. Again, it's a journey. So when we go to SME, it's not like 100% of their business, like they turn cash to digital in 1 day. Like it's a journey. We have a team that is working with them on how can they expedite this journey, because to Coucha's point, the more they become digital, again, the more they see value to it. Imagine if you're still getting payroll now cash. You wouldn't be able to get a credit card. You wouldn't be able to get a mortgage. You wouldn't be, so SMBs are starting to realize, oh my God, there's no like digital trail for my transactions, so I cannot get access to the financial sector. So when you kind of frame this value proposition to them, and step by step they started seeing the fruits out of this, they become more keen on actually adopting new digital innovations.
All right. One big challenge that small businesses face is access to capital. Ahmad, if you can throw some light on how Flapkap services help small business owners, get access to overcome the traditional roadblocks to financing.
So the magic word here is digital data sources, right?
Okay.
Again, any data source that you're using that can be verifiable for a company like me, whether it is the POS you're using, the e-commerce platform you're selling from, even the banking data, as long as you have big part of your amount of your transactions going through it, transfers, checks, the more you create digital information trail around your economic transactions, the more it is to be used by companies and fintechs that offer finances, and essentially even it removes the hassle from the SME to be preparing a lot of applications, a lot of documents to be submitted. Everything is in the data. If you have it in good order, then you can leverage it in nice ways.
You know, Faisal, Ziina's success in the UAE is impressive. How do you see the role of fintech in driving financial inclusion in the wider MENA region? And what are you doing in that regard?
So great question. So the thing is about localization in the region is we actually conducted a lot of user interviews across different countries in the region, right? And then we went and we conducted user interviews in Europe. And we actually did a user interview in Mexico just to kind of see how fintech is localized. And what's really interesting is you can take the journey of a fintech player that's tried to expand internationally, and in 99% of cases, fintechs fail to be anything beyond regional.
Okay.
If you look at the winner in North America, it's Chime and it's SoFi. You look at South America, it's Nubank. You look at Europe, it's Revolut. But once they try to cross that regional kind of gap, they tend to fall flat, right? What we've realized is that behaviors in the Middle East are very, very similar. Okay. And I'll give you one insight, if that works. SMEs operate like consumers, where basically they prioritize community over the transaction itself, and that needs to be baked into the user interface, right?
All right. You know, picking up from that, we're talking about expansion. And how do you see fintech evolving, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years, Islam, to further simplify business operations for smaller enterprises? What are the big trends that you're spotting?
So obviously, I mean, digitization is a huge trend, whether it's like normal or using AI agents in order to actually simplify like the business processes that goes behind, whether it's reconciliation and all sorts of business operations. At Paymob, we're super bullish about stablecoins. We think that it would be a huge kind of transformational infrastructure that would turbocharge payments and will actually like I always say that digital is at a disadvantage of cash, because when you pay someone in cash, cash settles instantly. But when you pay them digitally, it settles T+X, and it doesn't settle on the weekend. But in stable coins, especially when it comes to cross-border, I see that if someone can beam money from the UAE to the supplier in India or in South America, that will actually settle in instantly, it will actually improve the cash flow cycle and will remove a lot of pressures on SMEs when it comes to their cash flow capacity. So I think this is an area that I think will really transform this industry in the next at least 5 years.
All right. Ahmad, you know, Flapkap works with businesses to offer flexible financing. What role do you think alternative models, alternative lending models will play in the future of small business growth?
So, like, I think one of the key trends, and everyone is seeing it, what is happening with the LLMs. Like, of course, we have been speaking about AI for so many years. But like AI, the AI we're witnessing now, this is AI 2.0. This is not like the same, like the fancy regressions we had a few years ago. And from us, from a lending perspective, we can see it. We can see a clear path. We can see a clear path with the current technology on how we can reduce down, on the one hand, our cost of operations, right? So this means cheaper cost of capital for SMEs. And more importantly, how can the LLMs help in even expanding more the access to finance by accepting more SMEs that we would be usually not very comfortable with the given capabilities, the growing capabilities of the LLMs to be capturing the financeable from the very, not very financeable. So again, like the AI will be cheapening the cost of capital, widening the access, and essentially adding like significant value for SMEs to be able to grow.
All right. Like we now focus on the need for building stronger ecosystems. You know, small businesses rely on a lot of partnerships, be it banks, payment processors, and suppliers. So, Faisal, you know, how important are partnerships for the success of fintech platforms like Ziina? And what types of partnerships do you think are essential to help small businesses grow?
Awesome. I think you guys can probably relate here, but starting a fintech has a way higher kind of lead time to starting any other business. If you want to start a social media company tomorrow, you build an app or you build a web app and you can be up and live in probably a month or so, right? For us, there's a catch-22 between 3 different third parties that you need to solve for. You need to be on good terms with the regulator. You need to be on good terms with the basically banking partners, right? And you need to be on good terms with your investors. And the regulators want capital from your investors want you to be regulated, and your banks want you to be regulated. So you have to catch, right, all three. It's this kind of web. And fintech is an enabler built on all three. So as a fintech, you have to be basically very, very diligent when it comes to your internal processes, and you have to build up that trust over time.
Yes.
So usually 0 to 1 for a fintech is much more difficult, but I genuinely believe that 1 to 1,000 tends to be an easier part of the journey.
So what is that missing link, I want to know? How do you make a seamless ecosystem integration for small businesses to grow? What would be the missing link? What is the big ask there?
So I think, I mean, what Coucha is doing is really important because the appetite to lend to SMEs is something that is almost not there, especially in the UAE, because most of the banks have been burnt with what happened in 2008. So I think what Coucha is doing is really great because it's a huge missing piece, that credit to SMBs. Again, I think when it comes to the enablement piece, having them, they have POS or any hardware to accept digital transactions has been something of a worry, especially in emerging markets, because again, the POS will cost somewhere around the $200, and with the volume of the SMB, it wouldn't make economic viability. So again, how do you use something else like soft POS, things like digital ways to be able to accept rather than being fixated on a hardware-led kind of model. So I think these are mostly the two things that would actually lead. And to your point on partnerships, I mean, payment is at the end of the value chain. Like, you don't wake up in the morning and think, yes, I need a payment gateway today, right? It's you work with a software house, you go on Shopify or Zid or Sella in Saudi. So we try to partner with as many what we call channel partners, people who have access to those SMBs. They're building a digital channel for them, but they don't do payments. So we're trying to partner with them in order to actually empower the solution with payments. So I think this embedded payments, embedded finance, or giving financial services in an embedded way is becoming more and more a big part of our offering.
You agree, Ahmad?
100% I agree. I'm also really positive about the outlook of fintech specifically in the region. Okay. I feel we have so many, like almost all the ingredients needed. You have a growing economy, you have the government support, you have a thriving SME sector. There is real intent from the government to further diversify and make it even bigger. So you have all the ingredients, and of course you have like great talents flowing into the entrepreneurial scene. So we have all the ingredients to make this come together, inshallah. And it's
so
just
what's the secret sauce that's going to mix all of these ingredients together?
No specifics, just working, just executing, you know, every one of these guys, you know, and making sure his team works in the morning, goes and speaks to the SMEs he should be speaking to, you know, and the magic will happen by itself. All
right. You know, Ahmad, I also wanted to speak to you about data analytics. Yeah. It is becoming a core part of many fintech solutions. How do you ensure that small businesses, you know, they don't get overwhelmed with the kind of the enormous amount of data that's coming in, and they actually have access to actionable insights?
So honestly, like SMEs, they should not like really bother themselves with big data analytics. Okay. They just keep it there, and when we access it, we can do the work for them. You know, we can make the work for them. In terms honestly, like I see an opportunity. I see an opportunity. SMEs by nature, they don't have like really fancy talents, you know, to be able to go through these data, and every business is different from the other. But again, like getting back to the AI point, and without overhyping it, but we can see with the growing capabilities that there is potential, there is an opportunity to make these data actionable without a heavy investment from the SMEs into trying to make sense out of it.
All right, before I wrap up, I want to know from each one of you the big advice for small businesses who are looking to adopt fintech solutions. Where should they start, and how can they ensure they're choosing the right tools for long-term success? What would your advice be?
You guys want to go first?
Who wants to go first?
Come sign up to Paymob. No, I'm kidding. It's just, I mean, again, I think any SMB in the world, not even the region, they want to grow their revenue, right? Yeah. So you need to see if this solution, whether it's an AI software or SaaS or payment infrastructure, does this align with what you're doing? Does this offer you what you want? And I think if people started seeing this from this lens, they would see that adopting all of this would make perfect sense to them. Obviously, choosing a provider that it's not only the sales component, it's the after sales, because again, it's very easy to give you a POS or to integrate with you, but if you can't call me when you don't find your cash, it's a really big deal. Like, it's not sending if you're sending a WhatsApp message, it didn't come, you'll send it again. Yeah. But if you're beaming half your salary or paying for groceries and it didn't work out, I don't think you're going to try again. So having this very strong team when it comes to on-field operations or when it comes to merchant support is something we're investing heavily in. And again, this is why we think that you need a lot of people on the ground, because this will actually help give comfort to those SMEs when they need it.
One piece of advice.
My biggest advice would always be, I don't want the SMEs to be super innovators. Just don't be innovation haters, you know?
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Yeah, I think
Faisal wanted the final word. Yeah.
I think if raise your expectations from your providers, and if the solution doesn't feel customized to you, then it's probably the wrong solution.
Wonderful. Well, on that note, we'll have to wrap up our conversation. Ahmad, Islam and Faisal, many thanks for joining us here. Thank you for your brilliant insights. It was an absolute honor speaking with all three of you. Thank you so much.